At school, we were treated differently because everybody knew. I come from a very, very small town near the Caribbean side of Cuba, about an hour south of Havana. So, it was terrible for my family that stayed. We were the first ones to ask for permission to leave for my entire family. And as a little kid walking around this small town, everybody knew that we were the ones leaving, betraying the revolution. The name that we were given, which is a common name for Cubans that are against the revolution, was worms. That's what, and not only was that used to refer to us, that's the way we refer to ourselves. Some people say, "Are you a worm?" You will say, "Yes, I am a worm." That was our condition for being against the Cuban Revolution. I sent letters to my father, who was living in Spain, and I tried to negotiate what was happening by beginning to draw, and that was actually the beginning of my interest in drawing and painting. It was, needless to say, a terrible time. So that period ended in 1972, March of 1972, when we got on an Iberia plane. I only seen one plane before, and that was the plane my father left in. And it was an Iberia plane, and then it became our chance in 1972 to take another Iberia plane. So when I sat down with my mother and my brother Carlos, they were both crying. My mother, of course, was leaving her whole family, and my brother, who was younger than me, was also crying. I tried to explain to you what the North was. The North was America, but for us it was called El Norte. We never used the word United States, ever. And certainly not America, because that's a debated issue in Latin America. So we call it El Norte. And of course, we didn't have television or images of any kind. So El Norte was mystic. It made Olympus seem like a kind of a small place. And then on top of Olympus was El Norte, where, of course, how could we inhabit this mysterious land of El Norte? All we knew is that, just like death, people went to El Norte and never came back. That's one of the things we knew. It's a place that has one directional. At the time, you couldn't come back to Cuba once you left. We were told a few things about it, all of which were made up. So just to give you a sense of how crazy that idea was, when my aunt, my father on my father's side, left to El Norte, she asked me, "What can I send you from this country? What can I send you?" And I was like, trying to think as a 6-year-old, what in this crazy country, what can I possibly get from there? And I thought, this is the weirdest thing I ever asked. I want some black balloons. That was it. That was the extent of my understanding. Black balloons, because I've seen balloons, or never black ones. So only from a place as mystical as El Norte, you can actually get black balloons. And she actually sent them to me. I was somewhat disappointed that they were not as magical as I thought they would be. By the beach, infernally hot. Of course, I like heat. That's why I wish I would on this side. With this idea of a snowy land, full of promise of what we didn't know, but of promise in general, under very difficult conditions. My family was one of those families that lost a lot of things during the revolution, so the family was always talking about the past. So if you try to picture this weird condition, you're looking to the future, to the North that you don't know anything about, and you're looking to a past that I never lived in. So we were a generation that existed in a no man's land. So in that moment, Christmas comes in, and you probably know that we celebrate the 6th of January, not Christmas. And of course, there were no toys. So in the tiny little store that my wife just saw, because she's here as a witness that I'm not exaggerating, which is smaller than this pad here, in the tiny little store would become, for the 6th of January, presents would come, usually about toys would come, maybe about a dozen or so, or maybe 2 dozen for an entire town, and you have to wait in line. So my mom and my father waited in line for 10 days, replacing each other to get the first present, the first toy, which of course there was only one. It was very special, and guess what it was? It was a sleigh with a horse in it. And of course I looked at it, I'm like, what is a sleigh for somebody in the Caribbean? And I'm like, I mean, it looked like unthinkable for me. I can't wrap my head around this idea, like a sleigh. But I loved it, of course. And that sleigh sat in the porch of the house that my father built between 1957 and 1957 and 1963, which I'm going to say something later about. Is the modernist house, flat roof modernist house with cantilever columns in a country town of gabled roofs and wood houses. So we were already in some strange space there. And with that sleigh that marked my childhood, we left soon after.
Library.
It's okay, yeah.
I mean,
He had this structural condition, and he also the way sort of language is my
No laser.
no laser. You can never make any promise because you know that it's not like, oh, I'm going to go.
You don't have a path, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
I get this degree.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the most open.
Let's keep it alive.
I'm so proud of you coming to